Camp Arid Sun was not a normal training base. It was a place where confidence cracked, muscles failed, and egos were shattered under the brutal desert heat. Recruits arrived loud and determined, but the desert had a way of exposing every weakness. Into this harsh world walked Mira Hale, a girl so quiet that her presence barely made a ripple. She carried a small duffel, kept her eyes low, and moved with a kind of soft, quiet discipline that no one paid attention to. From the moment she stepped into the barracks, the judgment began. Some trainees smirked, whispering that she wouldn't survive the first week. Others simply ignored her, assuming she was just another recruit who would be broken by the punishing routines. Mira didn't argue, didn't try to defend herself, didn't even attempt to prove anyone wrong. She stayed in her corner, organizing her gear with unusual precision, as if each piece held a story no one else could see. During shooting drills, instructors barely glanced her way. They focused on the louder, more confident men who gleefully fired rounds downrange, bragging about their aim. Mira stayed at her station, silent, steady, her movements smoother than they realized. But she never pushed herself, never revealed her real ability. To everyone else, she was just average. But there was something different about her, a strange stillness, the kind that belonged to someone who knew more than they let on. She watched others carefully, noting their stances, their breathing mistakes, the way their rifles jerked with impatience. She studied everything, absorbing every detail, but never stepping forward to show that she understood more about precision than anyone else at the range. What no one knew was the truth she carried inside her. Mira wasn't here to learn sniping. She wasn't here to prove herself. She was here because she was running from a past she couldn't erase, a past where her incredible skill had saved lives, but also taken some she never intended to harm. Guilt had silenced her, burying her talent deep beneath fear and restraint. So Mira Hale told herself she would stay small, unnoticed, and ordinary. But the desert had different plans for her. And soon, someone else would see the storm she was trying so hard to hide. The quiet routine of Camp Arid Sun changed the moment Captain Riker arrived. His presence hit the base like a desert storm. Soldiers straightened their backs, instructors stiffened, and whispers spread faster than sand in the wind. Riker wasn't just any sniper, he was a legend. His near-impossible 3,800-meter confirmed shot had turned him into a myth. The kind recruits spoke about like a ghost story around campfires. The trainees lined up, each hoping to catch his eye, each wanting to prove something. Riker studied them with the cold patience of a man who had seen war carve men into dust. He didn't smile, didn't praise, didn't react. He simply observed, quietly, intensely. But while everyone expected him to focus on the loud, muscular sharpshooters trying desperately to impress him, Riker's gaze drifted elsewhere. He noticed the girl who wasn't competing for attention. The girl moving silently in the background. The girl every other soldier overlooked. Mira didn't even realize she was being watched. She sat at her bench, doing what she always did, cleaning her rifle carefully, adjusting screws with precise fingers, checking scopes with soft movements most snipers only learned after years of service. Her posture was steady, her breathing measured, her hands calm. To others, she was invisible. To Riker, she was a riddle. He sensed something beneath her stillness, a discipline too natural to be accidental, a quietness too controlled to come from inexperience. She reminded him of the rare kind of sniper who carried storms inside their silence. That evening, during the briefing, he announced that the next morning he would test one recruit with a long-range challenge. Everyone assumed it would be one of the loud, confident trainees, but Riker already knew exactly who he would choose. Dawn broke over Camp Arid Sun with a scorching glow, the desert stretching endlessly under a pale orange sky. The recruits assembled on the firing ridge, each one standing tall with the hope of being chosen. Their rifles gleamed under the rising sun, and excitement buzzed through the air like static before a storm. Everyone expected a dramatic selection, A moment where Captain Riker would choose the strongest, the boldest, the loudest dot. But when Riker stepped forward, his voice cutting through the desert silence, he didn't even look at the confident men waiting proudly in front. His finger lifted and pointed straight at Mira Hall. A stunned hush fell over the ridge. Several trainees exchanged confused glances. Others frowned, offended that the quiet girl they barely noticed was chosen over them. Even Mira herself froze, her breath catching in her chest. "Sir, me?" she whispered, disbelief tightening her voice. Riker nodded once, firm and calm. "You," he said. "Step forward." Her boots felt heavier with every step she took toward the firing platform. The target awaited far beyond the valley, a metal plate placed at an almost mocking distance. At 3,800 meters, it was so far away it was nearly indistinguishable, shimmering like a tiny dot swallowed by heat waves and desert mirage. The wind shifted unpredictably, sweeping across the dunes in restless gusts. Even the most skilled snipers would hesitate. The soldiers muttered under their breath. "She can't even see the target. This is a joke. Riker must be testing us. No way she's hitting that." Mira heard their voices, but they sounded distant. As she lay down on the ground and settled behind the rifle, something inside her shifted, a familiar sensation she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Her heartbeat steadied. The noise around her faded. Her breathing became slow, controlled, almost too calm. She began calculating everything: wind drift, humidity, distance drop, barrel temperature, mirage distortion. Her mind snapped into a rhythm she had tried to bury. In that moment, she wasn't the quiet girl from the barracks. She was the sniper she once swore she'd never be again, and everyone watching had no idea what they were about to witness. The desert fell silent as Mira settled behind the long-range rifle. Every recruit leaned forward, their doubts lingering in the air like heat waves. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if waiting to see whether this quiet girl could accomplish what most trained snipers wouldn't dare attempt. Mira exhaled slowly, letting her body fall into a stillness that didn't belong to ordinary soldiers. Her hands became steady, her breath softened into a silent rhythm, and her eyes narrowed into a focus so sharp it cut through the shimmering mirage. The world around her blurred, the chatter, the whispers, the skeptical stares, all dissolving until only the distant metal plate existed. She adjusted for wind drift, dialing her scope with gentle precision. She shifted her aim a fraction to counter spin drift. She timed her shot between two gusts she could feel but not see. Captain Riker watched her with an intensity that surprised even him. He recognized that posture, the posture of someone who wasn't guessing, but calculating. Someone who knew what a 3,800-meter shot truly demanded. When the final breath left her chest, she squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked through the valley, echoing against the stone ridges. The bullet launched into the desert air, beginning a long, fragile journey that would test every law of physics. It drifted through rising heat waves, fought against unpredictable wind currents, dipped and climbed with the Earth's pull, and continued slicing forward. For a moment, nobody breathed. Even the sun felt frozen, then faint but unmistakable. Ping! A tiny metallic ring traveled back across the valley, soft yet thunderous in its meaning. She hit it. She actually hit it. Shock rippled through the recruits like a shockwave. Some stepped back involuntarily. Others blinked, unable to accept what their eyes and ears had just confirmed. The loudest trainees looked hollow, their pride shattered in a single moment. Mira slowly lowered the rifle, her hands trembling, not from excitement, but from confronting the skill she had spent years hiding. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply breathed, steady but shaken, realizing she had crossed a line inside herself she could never uncross. Riker approached her, his voice low. "That wasn't luck," he said. "That was mastery." And everyone finally understood. She was nothing like the soldier they thought she was. As the sun dipped behind the jagged desert cliffs, Camp Arid's sun slowly returned to life. But the energy was different now. Word of Myra's impossible shot spread across the base like wildfire. Soldiers who once ignored her now watched her with a mix of awe and confusion. Some were humbled, others curious, but all of them carried one question: who was she really? While the camp buzzed, Myra sat alone behind the maintenance tent, her rifle across her knees. The metal still held the heat of the day, but her hands were cold, trembling with the weight of memories she had fought so hard to bury. She hadn't meant to reveal herself, not like this, not so suddenly. She had spent years hiding behind silence, trying to make her talent disappear. Captain Riker approached quietly, as if he already knew she wanted no audience. He sat beside her without speaking, giving her time. When she finally lifted her eyes, the truth spilled out in fragments, her past in a classified reconnaissance unit. The impossible shot she once made that saved her team, but unintentionally took civilian lives. Since that day, her gift had felt like a curse, a weight strapped to her heart. She left the unit, convinced she should never again fire at extreme range. She hid in plain sight, hoping the world would let her fade. Riker listened without judgment. When she finished, he faced the horizon and spoke softly. "Skill isn't the burden," he said. "Silence is. You can't heal by hiding. You can only heal by choosing what your gift becomes next." His words shook something loose inside her, not guilt, but release. The camp, once indifferent to her existence, now looked at her like a rising legend. But Myra didn't crave admiration. She craved direction, purpose, a way to rewrite the meaning of her talent. So when Riker offered her a place on a long-range intervention team, a unit meant to prevent tragedies, not cause them, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, a path forward. She accepted, not to seek glory, but to reclaim control over the very skill she once feared. And beneath the cooling desert sky, a new legend began, the quiet girl who matched a world record shot and found herself in the echo.